So what we see on the screen right now is the dashboard for the Visual Studio Team Services. Now, how do we get up to the point where we can have a dashboard like this? So since from the beginning I would start, you need a Microsoft account, preferably with a MSDN subscription, which allows you to provide monthly credits for various things that you can use on Azure portal. And it also allows you to leverage your Microsoft account with an array of Visual Studio Team Services. Now, Visual Studio Team Services comes up with a suite of functions which allows you to manage your projects, manage the life cycle of a project, maintain your source code by providing a Team Foundation source repository, TFVC. It also provides you to managing the Agile or the Scrum. So it comes up with micro project templates that allows you to manage projects in a Scrum or Agile way. And then it also provides functions related to the QA testing, allows you to do unit tests, integration tests, system testing, load testing. And then apart from that, it also provides functions with building your solutions and deploying your solutions. So with that, let's say we want to create a new team project on Visual Studio Team Services. Basically, this is your home page for visualstudio.com from where you can get started. You sign in with your Microsoft account, and once you can select this Visual Studio profile, it takes you to the screen. It will show you all your team projects on one single page here, just like how you see it. Gives you a bit of a summary for what particular organization you belong to. Apart from that, it also gives you the details of like the projects that you are associated with. Plus, you can also create any new team projects from here. And also you look at here, based on your subscription, you can see what benefits you have out of that subscription. So what you see on this side here, Visual Studio Team Service accounts. So like I have an array of projects that I had created. Some of them I'm an owner myself. Some of them I'm a member of those. So if you want to create a new account, basically you have to go through this wizard that allows you to create team project. And then based on that, you can create your account, create your new team projects within that account. And once you have a team project created, then it presents you with a dashboard. Initially, it will be empty. You will have to add the widgets. So you start adding source code, start adding like different team widgets that allow you to like give us higher level summary of what that project will consist of. So you can probably manage your widgets from here, like adding a new widget here or modifying your dashboards. You can go with multiple dashboards as well. And then the other option that gives you, so if I select here, it shows you your particular team project that you are in, and then you can also like create different teams. Now, in case of organizations where you have more than one team working on the project, you can provide that option of portfolio management, creating new teams, and then managing teams in a better way than having everything in one single team and then trying to organize your backlogs. So going into the next section, that is code. The code basically here when you create a new team project, in the team project creation wizard, it will ask for the repository that is to be used. And the options are the Git or a TFVC, and based on that, you can always go and take a look at like under the code section. It shows you your repositories, and then you can manage your repositories here, create sign-in of authentication of the users and all if it's Git. But by default, whoever is a member of your team project will have, based on your permissions and access, you can provide them access to your source code. So right now we have one team project. We have some source folders here. Okay, and what you see here is the change sets. Now you have three different links here. You can see the list of files, browse through the source code, or you can take a look at the change sets. Basically, change sets will be, you can say, revisions in Git or change sets in TFVC, whereby any subcode that is submitted is called as a change set, and then you will see what is happening around with the source code, how the development is happening. Then you have something called shelf sets. Basically, to manage the work in a team, shelf sets are created so that you can probably have some code reviews on top of that, or you can switch your priorities and switch to different tasks together by shelving your work and then unshelving once you come back to that work. So that's shelf sets. So under the code tab, you can pretty much take a look at your source code, browse the history, what has happened, and manage your shelf sets. Now we're going back to the work tab here. Under the work tab, we see backlogs, queries. So what you're seeing right now is the project that I have, the template that I used to create this team project was an agile project. Based on that, the work item types that I have received are like features, stories. So when you actually create the team project, that time you have to select your repository, you have to select what kind of project templates you are using. So if you choose Agile template, then you will see user stories and features. If you choose Scrum template, then you will see a product backlog items, bugs, those kind of work items. So these are all by default created when you select the type of your team projects. Also, then this particular screen here, backlogs, this allows you to take a look at your stories or backlogs and then manage your sprints. It gives you a Kanban board view, a backlog board view. Basically, you can see different Kanban boards here and at different hierarchies. So right now we are seeing at the storyboard here right now. So what is happening with the stories, how many stories are closed and done, and what are in progress stories. Similarly, if you go one hierarchy up, that is your features, then you can see a feature board here, how we are doing with the features. And all these items are, by the way, drag and drop. So if I drag from resolve to close, it updates the work log that you have closed this particular feature. And then similarly, if you are maintaining your sprints, then you can go into your sprint here. Let's say we are on iteration 6, for example, then it gives you the particular Kanban board for task board, you can say, where it will show you your user stories, the number of tasks within those stories, and how many are closed or what are in progress. And then here you have the views of your past iterations. So if you have something, all this is all configurable, by the way. And there is a whole list of things under the admin section, which allows you to manage and administer your VSTS project. So going back to the work tab, now here you can manage your backlog, and then you can set the capacities for the teams who are working on that particular iteration. Okay, and then there is additional functionality, for example, the queries. So queries are like TFS queries, and it allows you to pretty much write up your own queries. Also based on different levels, say developers will probably want to know what all work is assigned to them. So you have a default query like assigned to me query, and it allows you to like edit that particular query if you are interested in filtering and getting some more columns. Or it will also allow you to create some charts. So like, for example, I created some of the charts. So what are the work items? I want to see the history of the work items here, or I want to see how many I have done and how many I have closed and how many are pending. And then it also shows you like your remaining work based on the iterations. I mean, you could do all sort of things based on, and all this will be based out of the result set that you get here. You can configure those charts as well. So quite a good stuff that is available just by default, just by being a member of a team project. You can pretty much have all this access to you. And let's move on to the next, that is a build and release tab. So under the build and release tab, what we are looking at is Let's talk about the builds. Now, what are builds here? So we can configure the builds based on the source code you want to compile and create a package so that you could probably deploy it at one point of time. So for that, you need to compile your source code, create a build. The build basically is leveraging your MS build engine and to write up a like a template of a build. So you need to, we call it as a build definition that allows you to write the builds, like what all your builds will consist of. And so if I, for example, I see I'm using this particular build definition, if I click edit, it shows the definition. By definition, basically it means it's a list of all the tasks that the MS build, we want the MS build want to do. So for example, we are saying get all the packages from NuGet and then compile the solution. So, and then there are like different tasks. Okay, you can copy files, you can publish your artifacts. So when we say artifacts, what we mean actually is anything that is part of a build in the terms of a component that can be used by a release, by the release manager. So from the build to the release, the handover happens with the help of an artifact. So that's what here, if you see this task, I'm publishing an artifact called drop. And then again, another artifact that I'm publishing is a database. So all these are added with the help of a task. Now, what is a task? These tasks are nothing but PowerShell scripts behind the scenes which are executed by a build agent. When we talk about agents, so we can either have a hosted build agent, which is hosted in cloud, and then it comes with predefined functionality that can do .NET solutions can be compiled with a pre-hosted build. But let's say you have some more advanced tasks as a part of your build, then you would want kind of a custom build to be hosted on a virtual machine. Then VSTS will allow you to download and configure your build agent server. So once you have that setup running, then you can point your builds to use that particular agent, and all of this is all configurable under the administration. So if you see there is an agent queue and service hooks, basically all that will allow you to configure whether you want to use the hosted agent or your own particular private agent. So once the build is basically like you have all these set of tasks created, you can figure out like whether you want a continuous integration mode, whereby the moment somebody has submitted a code, it triggers the build, or you could schedule it based on demand, and all those options are available here under the triggers. And down here in the below we see gated check-ins. So that's another feature that is only applicable for a TFVC project. So gated check-ins will be when you submit your code, it will, based on that, it will compile it first, and if it can successfully compile and build your solution, then only it will submit your change set into the repository, otherwise it will not. So that's something to be, a lot of people choose that option also. In this case, we are not using the gated check-in option, but we are using the continuous integration, which is enabled as we see here with this setting. And so what are we actually including? We are including this particular Surgery DevOps V2. That's my base path for the whole solution, and that's what is getting included under this. So anything that gets changed within this particular base path, it will trigger a build and it will execute all these tasks, and it happens all the time we submit. So of course, after apart from that, there are some more options that you can configure, like how you want to define the build and what name convention you want to use, what agents you want to run. So all of these are options comes under options for the builds. Then there is another tab called retention that allows you to retain your builds. Possibly this is the default setting, 10 days it will maintain your build, but you can change this, and based on whether you are using a hosted or a private agent, you can pretty much think about what works the best for you, and you can configure accordingly. So that kind of covers the build definition. Now I'll go into the summary of a particular build. So this, whenever you execute builds, it generates a summary as a result, like whether your build was successful or whether it failed at a particular task, and then what are the details so that you can try to figure out what went wrong. So this summary page will show you the list of the builds that have been completed. It kind of gives you an average successful rate. So if it was kind of failing, you will see the success rate going down. Then the branches that we are using a single branch. We are on the master branch right now, so this is the list of the branches. Then you would also see work items. If I had associated some work items to a particular build, you will see all of those when you actually have a build getting executed, and then when it finishes the build, you will see a summary page like this where it will show you all the work items associated as well. That pretty much like covers up with the summary of your build. Let's move on to the releases. Under the releases, what we see here is, again, on the similar basis, you will create a release definition that will define what all my release release manager should do, how I want to deploy my particular solution, how many environments I want. All of that can be configured, and so you will create your release definition. And here it gives you the option to trigger a new release. First we'll go into the definition and we'll see what all the release definition can consist of, and then there are some additional functionalities provided as well. So here we see the environments as the first tab, created like dev, test, and prod as 3 environments. Consider environment as some kind of a logical grouping, nothing physical here. So this particular environments just represents a logical group. So under this group called as dev, the build agent will execute these set of tasks. Similarly, it is the task actually which is doing the deployment and physically passing files, doing transfer of files from A to B, setting up stuff for you, but environments are just logical. Okay. Similarly, I have test environment where I have some additional set of tasks that are going on, and finally in the prod section you can see like set of things that are happening within the production environment. So now I talked about artifacts before. So whatever artifacts are generated by the build, they will be available for the release manager. So once you come here, once you have a build that is working, it publishes onto a working folder, and then from the working folder it looks at that and lists down all the artifacts so that it can be used under the environments, and we can use those artifacts here under our tasks. Similar, just like how we saw under builds, we have variables, triggers, and now especially for the production or for the deployments, you can see triggers can be helpful. You can provide some approvals if in case you would require approvals before any release can get deployed. You can configure those here. And then you can also set whether you want to deploy non-stop continuously. The moment there is a new build available, you want to deploy this, then continuous deployment option is enabled here right now. Or you can schedule it like a nightly release or a weekly release based on the requirements. And let's go back here on the environments. So what we have is like, again, if I see, let's talk about the dev environment. So under dev environment, I have a task. I can add more tasks here. Okay. And each task basically will require some set of inputs, and based on that input, it will execute a PowerShell script in the background and do the job. So again, it is leveraging the same agent that we used for the build. So the build itself, the build agent, it does different things for you. It can act as a test agent. It can act as a build agent, which will compile and package your builds. It can do the release. So at the end, what it just does is execute your PowerShell scripts in the background. And all these tasks that we have added, they do come with a predefined PowerShell task, and it requires these parameters to be passed into it. Something more to talk about, I would say, is the task group. So right now, I'm not leveraging anything on the under the task groups, but what this will do is, let's say you have a similar set of activities happening, then you would rather defining them individually each time. Instead, you will club them into one single task group and then just provide the input parameters that is variable for that different setting to be executed. That way, you can say the reusability comes into picture by leveraging the task groups. The last tab here is the Explorer tab, which allows you to see the list of all the bills here and kind of gives you the summary of like what's happening with the bills and how are they, whether they were passing, and then this one option will show you whether it's a batched continuous integration or not. This one setting will basically mean that if you have it enabled, let's say you have two or three different chain sets submitted at the same time, and based on the last build, it will look into it will club all the chain sets together as one single batch to be released. So that's what this setting will do. Okay, so we covered the build and the release tasks. There is an additional tab called as test. So under the test, you can see there are like, you can set up your test plans, and you can use the Microsoft MTM tool to plan your test cases and test plans, or you can also configure some test machines like labs and everything to execute those based on the MTM features that were there. But what I understand is that probably those labs and everything are going away, and what we have left so it uses VS Test in the background to execute all your tests, and based on what kind of tests you have added into the project, you will be able to leverage these features. So in this particular solution, we do have some different types of unit. We have like a unit test. Under this particular, we added a unit test. For example, this particular class, it is using a unit test. And then we have some functional tests for using a Selenium. So in this class, you will notice there is this is the functional, so it is leveraging Selenium, and so we are testing the functionality by writing the Selenium tests here. And then we have a web performance and a load test as well. So that gets added into the solution. Once we have it all added here, then we can configure the release. Under the release, you can so unit tests we are leveraging under the builds, then functional and the load testing is being configured under the releases. So basically we'll see the list of the load tests, and then if I click on the runs, it will show you all the runs that have been performed in the past. And then it maintains like here I'm seeing the 3 runs that are selected. I think it's based on some filtering on how many runs you want to see. So if I see it's looking at this particular filter like a weekly, how much, but if I kind of say less than equal to today, we'll probably see a lot more, like a whole history of test runs that's going on. So it shows you all those details here, and whether they've passed, whether they have failed, how much they have passed, what percentage, things like that. Similarly, under the load test, you will see the history of the load test similar way, and I'm clicking on all load test filter here just to show me all the load tests. And if I want to see the details of that particular load test, it will show me these metrics like average response time of a page, the number of users that were tested at that point of time, how many like the pages are being served with 54.3 requests per second that went in, any particular errors that came out around in that time of test. So it gives you all that along with your logs as well. And one good feature is the charts, where you can see in a visual representation of your load test on throughput and performance. So as we are increasing the number of users as a load, how's the website behaving? Is it going down with the performance? Is it staying the same? And as we see here, with a max load of 100 users, pretty much the performance stays the same under that load. So I mean, based on all that, you can have some thresholds configured so that you will see whether your website is maintained very well, or whether the changes that were done recently are causing any problem. So we'll be able to figure out those things from here. So these are some of the advantages of configuring all the load tests and the Selenium tests and all in place. Then I think we can also cover some of our administrative functions in VSTS. For example, how you want to manage your work. So let's take a look at the work here. Now in this particular team project, we are not leveraging epics. So here is the hierarchy of your work items. Epics go on the top. Under the epics, you can see features. Under that, you can see user stories or product backlog items. And then within those, probably you will see tasks. So you're configuring here at this level what you will see in the work backlog tab. So whatever you configure here, you will see accordingly. I'll open up in a new tab so that you can see. Now you see the feature board and the storyboards just because those two are enabled. But if I had the epics board enabled, then we will see additionally epics as well. And apart from that, there are like additional settings, how you want to manage the bugs, for example, how you want to, whether they will be treated as the same as a product backlog or a user story or not. So at the same level, you can configure that. I will go on to something more in detail towards the security. Again, you can configure security groups. You can provide which all users will have access at the project admin level, or which all team members will have a contribution access, contributor access as only, so that they can probably like take a look at the backlogs, submit their code changes, and nothing administrative related work. So we can configure pretty much by default. You have the permissions available in here, and then you can add more on top of that as well. So we go back to our team project, and then we take a look at some administrative functions here on the so for example, agent queues, notifications. Here you are configuring your agents. So we did talk about earlier on the hosted agents and the private agents. So by default, you will get one hosted agent, and by default, you'll also, with the subscription, you can add one private agent, and any additional private agents, they need to be purchased. So we have one private agent. I just named it as A1. And we can see that all the builds that we were executing were being executed by A1. So here it allows you to configure by downloading the agent. Basically, you'll get a set of files that you can deploy it onto a machine. It could be an Azure virtual machine. It could be your on-premise virtual machine, wherever you think is working for your project, and then you can have it configured over there. For me, I'm particularly hosting this agent on a Azure virtual machine. So as we can see, I can just quickly log in to that particular virtual machine to show the agent running in the background. Right now, I'm running it in an interactive mode. By what that means is whatever is happening on the, let's say we triggered a build or we triggered a release. So here in this interactive window, I can see that, okay, the agent is performing some jobs, and then it is throwing back the standard output to this console. So that's what the interactive mode means. And there is another option that you can run as a service as well. So you won't see any windows, rather you will see one Windows service running in the background. So the advantage, I would say, is, let's say you can configure that service to be automatic. so that even if you restart your build machine, then it automatically starts your agent behind the scenes. Whereas if it is in the interactive mode, this window will close down and then the agent will shut down. So if you restart it, then you have to manually go in and turn it on. So those are the kind of the differences between the interactive mode and the service mode. So let's go back to the, yeah, okay. So we are going back to the dashboards and go into this particular team. And we should take a look at yeah, looks like we covered pretty much in detail, and we'll have some more follow-up videos that will provide further detail on how to create, how to configure, how to execute. Right now this is of overall overview summary of all, but we'll have some follow-up videos that will cover the in-depth on how-tos. Thank you.